Here's the first step to achieve good communications. Number one, have something good to say. That's step number one. It's fairly obvious. To have something good to say, try to recall and remember and take notes, keep journal, whatever, of your experiences, because as you live your life, you're going to have something good to say. One, from your failures. Two, from your successes. You're going to have something better to say from the mistakes you've made and how you corrected it and bailed yourself out. And sometimes instead of just registering it in your head, why not commit it to paper so that it gets logged, it gets recorded, and someday you can use it for the future? Have something good to say. The key to speaking well, the key to excellent communications is preparation. Actually, all of our life is preparing. This year, preparing for the next. Those first, 8, 9 grades preparing for high school, then high school preparing for college, college and university preparing for a career to earn money, then preparing to make the investments to keep you safe and secure, build a financial wall around your family nothing can get through. Always preparing for those steps and stages in our life. That's part of the game of life. For humans, it seems like it takes us longer to prepare. After 17 years, we're not quite sure. Preparation, getting ready, sometimes seems so laborious. After going to grade 1, now you got to go to grade 2. After grade 2, it's grade 3. Will it never end? Come on, one more grade, grade 4, and then 5. Wow, seems like it takes us forever to finally get ready. To design a life, and get married, and have a family, and a career, and fortune, and future. But it takes preparation. Now, to communicate well, here's some good words to prepare for communication. Number one, interest. Just keep your interest alive in people and places. That's why, a big share of my job takes me around the world, countries all around the world, from Africa to Asia to South America to Australia to Russia to the Far East, Israel. The last time I was in Israel, there was some kind of an alert. We were all on the airplane. We all had to get off the airplane. They took off all of our luggage, and each one of us had to go identify our piece of luggage and put it back on the airplane, and then we took off. Wow. Taking what? No chances. If you'll develop an interest in all of that, when it's right side up and when it's upside down, take a keen interest in the politics of the day and the speeches and all that's happening that gives you good stuff to debate and decide. Where do you stand on the major issues? Not only the political issues, but the major life issues. Be that interested in life and people. So underline the word life and people. That's the whole study. Study life in all of its twists and turns. Study people in all of their variety. In being in an enterprise that, where you have to employ people, get people to work with you, that's a challenge. Different ages, different opinions, different personalities, different temperaments. Here's one of the skills I learned that paid me big money. Getting people to work together. And see, if they're all different and a whole variety, how do you get them all to work together? I'm telling you, it's not easy. It is a challenge, organizing, getting people to work together. But the paycheck, it's unbelievable. Now, if you're working with independent people, then it really is challenging. I promise you, a paycheck like you cannot believe. Here's what's interesting about people. The ones who should do it the most are inclined the least. How come they can't see it? I don't know. I can see it. They can't see it. Maybe right now they're not supposed to see it. That's the best I said. Sometimes you just got to take the easier way out. I don't know. That's an easier way out than to try to explain it all. That's just the way it is. Somebody you thought was going to stay, they leave. Here's what you have to learn to say. Isn't that interesting? Wow. And somebody that you thought was going to leave, what? They stay, and you say, I wouldn't have thought that in 100 years. There's a surprise a day waiting for you, working with people. And then some people are nice, and some people are not so nice. But there's only a few. When I first started in sales, Mr. Schoaf, my mentor, said, here's the good news, Mr. Rohn. There's only 9 or 10 real nasty, miserable, horrible people in the world. That's what he said. Now, he said, they move around a lot. You're liable to get one once in a while. But when you do, you just say, hey, there's only 9 more like you. I can handle that the rest of my life. So that was really good. And then sometimes you got to try a little wit and a little humor. That helps. When I first started traveling with Mark Hughes in Herbalife 21 years ago, one of my friends said to me, I heard some people died using that product. And I said, not that many. Now, it was a silly comment that he made, so I had to think up a silly answer. You can't give an honest answer, a good answer to a silly comment. I said, I understand as long as the deaths are under 100 a month, they get to keep selling the product. If the numbers go over 100, they have to come in for a review. Now, that was all silly nonsense, but he deserved it, right? His silly comment. I don't know, use a little humor. Somebody says, this isn't going to work for me. Say, it was designed not to work for some people. The best wit in the world was Winston Churchill, right? Lady Astor in the English Parliament, exasperated one day with Winston Churchill. She said, Winston, if you were my husband, I'd put poison in your coffee. He said, Lady Astor, if you were my wife, I would drink it. Don't let anybody put you down. Be a student of life and people and all the varieties and what's happening in the world. It's an interesting place to live. And while you're here, learn all you can, study all you can. Right? The varieties. Some people are easy and some are miserable. Just learn how to handle all that. Here's the next word to communicate well, and that's fascination. It goes the step beyond just interest. Be like a child, fascinated with everything. Next, sensitivity. Trying to understand where people are, where they're coming from, the position they might be in at the moment. Trying to understand. A night visits us all after days, and some winters are tough, and some people are having tough times. Be sensitive to all that. Next is simply knowledge. Just gather every idea you can that makes you a better communicator. Now we must learn to say it well. Once you've got something, now you can't mumble. If you've got something good to say, you can't mumble, right? It's got to be clear, or no matter how good the message is that you've got to deliver, how good the instructions, how good the ideas, no matter how good they are, if you don't deliver them well, now the power is lost and the opportunity is lost. So number 1 is to have something good to say, and number 2 is to say it well. Here's what will help you to say it well. Make this list. Number 1, sincerity. If a message is delivered with sincerity, see, that makes all the difference. If the speaker is sincere, if the father is sincere, if the mother is sincere, see, that's captivating for the children. If the friend is sincere, even covering a delicate subject for us of some changes we probably should make, if they're sincere, see, we will give them room. Perhaps to get on our case if we know they're sincere, not just trying to criticize for criticizing's sake. If your sincerity, I'm telling you, that wins the day. Here's what can really be accomplished. Hopefully, like this weekend here, someone sincerely willing to speak and someone sincerely willing to listen. Now, in terms of lecture, book, seminar, and all the rest, we must come to this conclusion, because it's a wise conclusion, that sincerity is not a test of truth. In your study and evaluating everything, just make sure you have that in the back of your mind. Sincerity is not a test of truth. We must not make the mistake of saying, he must be right. He's so sincere. See, that might be a mistake. Why is that? Here's why. It's possible to be sincerely wrong. So sincerity is not a test of truth. Here's the only test of truth. Truth is the only test of truth, not sincerity. We hope someone will be both truthful and sincere, but we don't mistake sincerity for truth. Here's next. Repetition. To get better at something, you just have to go do it. Go do it. Accept every opportunity to go make a little talk if that's going to be your business. Get better at talking to your kids. Come up with more illustrations. Come up with more ideas. Read an extra book, How to Communicate with Teenagers. So you'll have something a little better to say. And then just practice it. Get good at it. Get better at it. Right? I was clumsy when I started. Now the words flow a little easier. I still struggle with the language, trying to make it clear, but it's easier now. Repetition has helped me to do that. Here's what's next. In good communication, saying it well, brevity. Right? Don't take too long to say it if you can say it in shorter sentences and shorter time. One way to learn brevity is to talk to kids. You talk to kids for 30 seconds and they say, how long is this gonna take? It's already too long, right? 30 seconds. I mean, they got games to play and things to do. They can't hang around for, an hour's discourse. So talk to kids. It helps you to make it more brief. Powerful, but brief. Well said, but, more brief. The storyteller tells us Jesus wandered around the countryside in putting his 12 together that was going to start this whole new movement. And as he wandered around the countryside, every once in a while he would say, you follow me. See, that's short. That's no hour presentation with the fancy lights and, no, just you follow me. Why could he be so brief and so short with that simple appeal? Jot this down now. Probably for who he was, not just for what he said, but for who he was. There was something about him when he said, you follow me, see. Probably his reputation, probably his manner, probably with how he said it. Irresistible, you follow me. Wow. So here's what's powerful. And you can talk less and even be more effective in this personal development area. The stronger you become and the wiser you become, the more caring you become, it shows in your language and your manner. The texture of your communication changes and reaches where it couldn't reach before. It strikes the heart where it didn't strike before. Next, style. Now you've got to develop your own style. You can be a student of style. There's about a dozen people that I know over the years that if you knew those dozen, you'd say, hey, a little bit of each of them appears in Jim Rohn's style, which is probably true. Not copying any one person, but I like the way the person said it this way. I like the person's gestures, because I used to be a little too stiff without, gestures. Frank Sinatra was the best, not for only his lyrics and his phrasing and his style, but his gestures. His gestures. They were captivating. They were part of his persona. So make this note, it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. Style, sincerity, the way you present it, heart, soul, from deep inside, commitment, dedication, wrapped up in your language so that now when you present it, hey, it becomes incredibly effective. Next is vocabulary. The better your vocabulary, the better you can share ideas that are meaningful, find words now to use that you couldn't use before. Interesting story on vocabulary. Some friends of mine took a survey among prisoners many, many years ago. some rehabilitation program they were working on for prisoners. They weren't looking for this, but here's what they found. There's definitely a connection between vocabulary and behavior. And here's what they discovered. The more limited the vocabulary, the more tendency to poor behavior. Isn't that interesting? And when you think about it for a while, you can say, well, I can see where that would be. If you were very limited in your ability to comprehend because you had such a small vocabulary, that no matter what someone said, it would still be confusing. No matter what they said, it still might not make sense. They said it clear, but you couldn't see it. And sometimes that's because the vocabulary is so limited that it doesn't have the ability to register the scene on the screen of your consciousness. What if you could only see the world through this little tiny hole? You would be inclined to say, the world is like this. And all of us would say, no, the world is like this. This person would say, no, it's like this. How come they keep insisting the world is like this? Because that's all they can see. They're limited in the scope of their ability to widen their perception about life and what's going on and what's happening simply because they don't have the vocabulary to understand. So they started working on vocabulary. And immediately, behavior started to change. Being able to see, being able to comprehend. Oh, now I see. Oh, now I understand the reason why. And as your education increases, that should be one of the major purposes for education, is to help you see things you couldn't see before. Comprehend what you couldn't comprehend before. See a future you couldn't see before. See beyond tomorrow you couldn't see before. See, that's a gift. Vocabulary. So keep working on your vocabulary. Now here's another reason. Only with our present vocabulary can we express what's going on in our head, what's going on in our heart. You can't express beyond your present vocabulary. What if it's very limited? Then your ability to express what you think, express how you feel, is limited. So by a very restricted vocabulary, if you can't understand very well, and if you can't express very well, then your world becomes very, very small, and you only need a place 8 by 10 to live. So jot this down. Make one of the books a very important book, and that is the dictionary. A word you don't understand? I think Dennis mentioned that earlier. Come to a word you don't understand, you look it up. Say, what is this word? Words are like lights. It's like another light. Now make this note now, especially the English language. There's nothing richer than the English language because there's so many ways to say it in English. In some languages, there's only one way to say it. In English, there's another way to say it, and another way to say it, and another way to say it. When I travel to all these countries and have to have translators, it gets to be difficult sometimes. Expressing something that makes sense in English, because we have several ways to say it, but in their language, there's only a couple of ways to say it. So the translator has a tough job sometimes translating. So I've had to learn to amend and modify, work on my presentation when I travel needing translation. When I first went to Japan, I said to my audience, he was all bent out of shape. And my translator said, what the heck does that mean? So that would make sense in English, right? We know what that meant, but in Japanese, how would you describe that? So I learned not to use those kind of phrases. My first Chinese audience, I said, he blew his top. My Chinese translator said, wouldn't look good in Chinese. So, right, I have to modify and change, and right, poetry and some things just don't work with translation. Stories make sense in English, don't make sense in another language. So it's interesting. It's interesting when you have multi-languages. One of Herbalife's big conventions, 35,000 in the Georgia Dome, 21 languages. Everybody in the audience has got these headphones on. And you hit the punchline, the Spanish get it first, and then the French get it, and then the Germans get it, and then finally the Italians get it. Some of them seems like it takes a little longer to catch on, but it's the translation. Some translations take a little longer to translate than others. So it is a challenge to help somebody to understand something simultaneously in 21 languages. So you have to learn how to present, how to do the stuff so that it's easier for the translators to make sense, right, of what you're trying to say. It's interesting. But the gift of language is so powerful, it's worth the exercise. It's worth the effort. Okay? Vocabulary, brevity, style, repetition, sincerity, saying it well. Here's another one on saying it well. Don't fail to say it. You need the practice. Practice everywhere. If you're going to give someone a gift and send a little card, practice making this little card something they'll keep and remember for the rest of their lives. Not ordinary, extraordinary. Not like everyone else, different than everyone else. It's the practice of using your gift of saying things another way until a light turns on, another way that expresses something heartfelt that the standard ordinary language wouldn't express, couldn't reach, couldn't paint these mental pictures. It's okay to give flowers, but don't let flowers do all your talking. Flowers have a limited vocabulary. Guess what flowers say? You remembered. That's about all they say. Flowers don't say, nobody in this world affects me like you do. Love. See, flowers talk, but they don't say that. That you got to put in the little card. Nobody in this world affects me like you do. Love. And then you sign it. And see, long after the flowers are gone, somebody's going to keep the words. The words are more powerful than the flowers. So don't let flowers do all your talking. See if you can't choose the words that are meaningful, words that are unique. And the more you do this, practicing every little occasion to say something well, every little occasion to say something well, whether it's a little talk to the family gathering, or whether it's training, or whether it's inspiring, or a little class on Sunday morning, whatever it is, keep improving, find a new way to say it, a new illustration, a new story. You'll get better. The gift will belong to you, and the effect could be electrifying. Don't fail to say it. Now, women are better at this really than men. Women seem to be able to find the language much easier to say something. Men have to work at it a little harder. So come on, men. Let's work at this thing a little harder. See if we can't say something meaningful that's, not just standard, ordinary. That's okay, right? But just think of ways. When my wife Judy and I parted ways, wow, that was a unique experience. I wrote this little note. Dear Judy, as often as the night comes, so does my sadness. As constant as the day arrives, so is my love for you. I wish for you and I wish the best for you, and I understand that dilemma. My life is here where you touched me. If ever you would call, I would be there to be touched again. It wasn't very long. It was just a few words. But I tried to express what was going on in my heart and soul at the moment. So I'm asking you, don't fail to say it. Here's an expression we've heard. Words are no substitute for action. That's true. Let me give you another one. Action is no substitute for words. It's okay to do, but you've also got to say. Express it, as clumsy as it might be to start. Start a better program of better communication, saying it better. Here's the next one now that's really challenging, but it really works, and that is read your audience. Whether it's an audience of a child or an audience of a training class, or whether you're a minister and you preach, here's what you've got to do. Say something well, but then read the effect you're having. In those early days, I had to quickly read. Should I keep going or should I quit? I mean, is it over? Or, you got to read it. And at first, I started just going through my notes like this. and I didn't look up. I would go through my notes and I wouldn't look up. I would just go through my notes and go through my notes. Some of those early classes, I think everybody could have left and I'd have just kept on going right through my notes. Then finally, I learned to start looking up to see if it's okay. Should I slow down? Should I speed up? Am I coming on a little too strong? Should I get a little softer? This is what reading is all about. If you're talking to a child, should you really pour it on or should you hesitate? Should you save this for another time or do it now? Some of that you've got to pick up by reading the child. Read what's happening to your audience of 1 or 1,000. This is a challenge, but it'll help you in framing better the words you need to say and the style you need to use. Okay. If a guy's leaning toward the door, that means you probably should hurry. He's not going to be here long. Get it done. Now, in reading, there's 3 things. Jot these down. 3 things in reading your audience. First, you read what you see. Salespeople soon learn. If the customer's got his arms folded and his chin tucked down and he's frowning, this one ain't going to be easy. Right? This one's going to take all my skill to get his arms unfolded, make him a little more comfortable, get that frown off of his face. What can I do? I got to reach in my bag for some good stuff, right? To see if I can't sort of change the situation. And what causes us now to do those amendments in our presentation? It's reading someone's body language, right? What's happening? Here's the next one. You've got to read what you hear. If it's a two-way conversation, you've got to listen as well as talk. Mama said 2 ears, 1 mouth. Listen twice as much as you talk at least, maybe more. Listen so that you can now know how to proceed, especially if you're talking to a child. You listen so that you know how to proceed. No use going on and on if just a couple of things will do, and by listening, you pick that up by listening. Here's the next one. You got to pick up the emotional signals, how you feel, whether you're coming on too strong, whether you should be stronger or easier this time. That's an art in reading. First, what you see. Second, what you hear. Third, read how you feel. Now, this is where women really have it made. Being able to feel, sense. Woman says it doesn't feel right. Man says, what does that mean? It doesn't feel right. She says, I'm telling you, something. Women know about this stuff. Something isn't. Wow. And they pick it up. Men can learn better on how to pick up these emotional signals, but women seem to have it, right? They're tuned in. It's built in. Because there's no use going on and on. If the signal should have told you, wow, this is not the time. This is too strong. Picking up not only what you see and what you hear, but what you feel. To achieve good communication, something good to say, saying it well, reading your audience. Here's the last one. Intensity. Intensity is the emotional part of communication. Communication is both words and emotion. Here's what's really powerful. Words loaded with emotion. See, that's what's unbelievably powerful. It can move nations. It can help people change directions. It can establish an ideology, for good or for bad. Look at Hitler and his ability to preach. Look at Stalin and his ability to preach. Lenin, as wrong as they were, they believed it with all of their heart. Disastrous results, but they put everything they had into it. The emotional content was unbelievable. Powerful. Yes, in an evil direction, but it can also be used for a good direction. This intensity, strength, power, emotion. Words are words. Words are like a little straight pin, right? A guy buys a shirt and it's got all these little pins in it, little straight pins that you got to take out. What if I took one of those straight pins and I threw it at you? and it hit you in the face or the hand, you'd feel it. That's my words that got you, the little straight pin. But what if I took that little straight pin and wired it to the end of an iron bar about this long? And then I let you have it. See, I could drive the pin through your heart. The iron bar is the emotion. The pin is the words. Now here's the craft. And conversation is a craft. Don't get lazy in learning this craft, because it'll serve you so well at home, it'll serve you so well in the marketplace, it'll serve you so well in your career and making your fortune. This craft of communication. Here's the combination. Well-chosen words mixed with measured emotion. Not only do the words have to be well-chosen, the emotion has to be well-measured. Meaning, not too much power for a minor point. The actor on the stage or in the movies, in giving a performance, has to learn this craft of the right amount of emotion with the dialogue and the words that are to be spoken. It can be so powerful if it's measured well. See, if you had a powerful point and a little bit of emotion, that wouldn't make sense. Nobody would get it. Nobody would say, wow, for such a powerful point, it's not a very strong emotion. So then you can't come on too strong with some minor point. You know, sometimes kids have a legitimate objection. They say, you're making too big a deal. And sometimes parents have a tendency to do that, to make a big deal out of a little bitty deal. So here's the key. Make a big deal out of a big deal, and then smaller emotional content on a little minor deal. That's an art. That's a craft. If you talk to somebody, this is too close. This is too close. Give them a little more room. Adjust your style to fit the occasion and the emotional content so that it works, so that it makes sense. That when you burst on the scene, it's called for. The point is called for, that much emotion. This is a craft. Don't get lazy here. And the reason I ask you not to get lazy here is because the payoff is so great. Whether it's working on a job or advancing your career or at home with your family or communicating with your spouse. Whatever it is, craft your communications. Be a little more aware and just ask yourself, could I possibly get better at affecting people with my language and my words and my style and my emotions and all the rest? And the answer is yes, we all could.